Good afternoon. We have a day full of developments on Sudan for you. You probably just saw the Secretary General's stakeout on Sudan a few seconds ago. And we will now turn to our guest, Abdou Dieng, who is the acting resident and humanitarian coordinator in Sudan. Abdou is joining us by telephone from Sudan to brief on the humanitarian situation on the ground. It's a pleasure to have you join us. Abdou, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. It's good to hear from you, and I'm glad that you're safe and sound. Please, you can start with some remarks, and then we'll turn to our colleagues in the press.
Thank you very much for inviting me to joining you and have a conversation, particularly on the humanitarian situation prevailing in Sudan at the moment. I think this will be the topic of the discussion, but I would like to make a few points before we start the conversation. First of all, what I would like to say is the fighting must stop. We urgently need a humanitarian pause. Score of people who have been killed is high, and hundreds have been injured. As the fighting continues in densely populated area, we worry that the toll will climb. People must be able to have access to food, fuel, and other critical supplies and services for their family. The humanitarian operations are severely hampered. Fighting and attack on airport and other critical humanitarian access hub has made humanitarian operations virtually impossible. Warehouse, vehicle, and other humanitarian assets have been attacked, looted, or seized. Health services, already precarious, could be further pushed to the brink. Second point, the other point is aid must reach millions in need. As you know, before this violence, humanitarian needs were already at very high. 1/3 of the population, around 15 million people, need humanitarian aid. There are still, before this crisis, about 3.7 million which are internally displaced, mostly in Darfur. We are also concerned about reports on sexual harassment and violence. The parties must respect international law. People trying to flee and access assistance should be able to do so safely. Hospitals and infrastructure essential for the supplies of water and electricity must be protected. The targeting of humanitarian workers and humanitarian assets must end. This is what I would like to say in my introduction before we embark into a conversation. The floor is yours.
I'll now turn the floor over to reporters for questions. Kristen from Al Jazeera.
Thanks so much. First, a point of clarification. Did you say 15 million in need of aid? Did I hear that number correctly?
Yes, correct.
And that was before the fighting started, 15
This
million.
is what it is on the humanitarian appeal, yes.
Also, I'd like to get your reaction to the head of the army. I just want to make sure I say the General Abdul Fattah Burhan, speaking to Al Jazeera earlier, said that they don't need outside interference in Sudan, and he cautioned against that. I'm wondering what your reaction to hearing that is. Do you take that as a threat?
What I would like to say on this, talking into the humanitarian front, wherever the fighting is coming from must stop, regardless of which parties of the conflict it is. What we want is a ceasefire is opposed in order to help Sudanese who are already suffering to have access to basic need, which is not the case today, particularly during this month of Ramadan. Over.
Okay. Yes, Yvonne?
Thank you. Yvonne Murray, RTE News Ireland. My question is about what the Security Council should do, in your view, to address the situation. What can they do?
I think all member states, including members from the Security Council, must call the different parties to stop the fighting. This is our message. Regardless of the parties, all must lay down their weapon to enable the Sudanese to have access to their basic needs, which is not the case today, which is not the case since 1 week. People are extremely suffering, and we hope that member states will call all parties to stop the fighting.
Okay, yes.
And one follow-up, you mentioned the reports of sexual violence. Could you please give some more details on that? And where are you getting those reports from? And are they being verified by UN people on the ground?
But those reports came to us from different organizations working in Sudan. We are investigating them, and I'm absolutely sure that in the next couple of days or week, we will be able to have a full picture of what it means. But those reports came to us from various sources.
Okay, next we have online Michelle Nichols from Reuters.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this briefing. Just a quick follow-up to that first. How many reports of sexual violence have you received? And then a couple of other questions. Just to clarify, you said it's basically physically impossible at the moment for the UN to operate and to carry out its aid operations. Is that correct? Are you planning any kind of flash appeal? What kind of number will you be asking for? And just on internally displaced and people fleeing, do you have any figures on that? Are people going to countries other than Chad? Any information on that appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, let me start with the follow-up question on the sexual harassment and abuse. What I said earlier is various reports have come to us informing about those sexual exploitation and abuse against humanitarian workers. Now, coming back to the question about the number of people, as I mentioned, in the 2023 appeal was targeting 15 million people, and there were 1.7 billion people requested, which is now only funded at 13%, 1/3. The number of displaced people before this crisis was 3.7 million people. When it comes to further displacement or further movement from Sudan to other countries, yes, we have received some reports that there are some movement into Chad, there are some movement into South Sudan, there are some movement into the border between Ethiopia and Eritrea. But again, since Saturday, none of the actors, humanitarian actors, is able to work, even to get out of their residence. Everybody is working from home or from shelter somewhere. So in the next, I hope, if there is a pause, we will be able to conduct further assessments to see the nature of the damage. What we know is there are lots of supplies which have been looted, including 4,000 metric tons of food. Access to health services is almost impossible because those workers cannot move out of their home to provide services to health services. Access to water is almost impossible. Access to energy also. You can see the dire situation in which we are living here in Sudan. And the only way to come to help people is to see a pause or an end to this conflict. Otherwise, in the next coming days, the situation will be much worse than what it was and what it is today. Over.
Okay, Deji?
Hi, this is Bashir with China Central Television. I came late, so if you have already mentioned the things that I want to ask, I apologize first. I just want to ask about the situation of the humanitarian workers. We know that there were two ceasefire attempts. The UN said that you were pulling out people from dangerous areas. So how many humanitarian workers have you put out from what the UN mentioned the dangerous area, and how would these people evacuate to other countries? And how is the humanitarian work keep going? And you just mentioned that many people actually fled from their home to other countries or to other places, IDP. I just want to know, given the conditions that it's physically impossible to conduct any operations, what can the UN humanitarian team help those people?
Listen, what we have tried to do is to try to help humanitarian workers who are in certain zones which are considered very dangerous to be extracted and go to safer locations. That has started. I cannot give you the exact number. I was one of those. In fact, by the way, myself, I was in an area where fighting was going on, and I was extracted yesterday to come to a safer zone. That operation is ongoing. But what I can say is there is no humanitarian services provided to Sudanese the last 5 days, simply because it's not possible for any humanitarian workers to move outside of their home location or their compound. What we are trying to do is to try to work with all the stakeholders so that when there is a pause or there is a ceasefire, and we hope there will be for this period of Ramadan, to take that opportunity to help those workers located in less safer zone to go into areas which are considered today safer, but we don't know tomorrow. But all this, I would say, can only be possible if fighting stops. That is the main message. So that we will be able to do the assessment. We know what was already assessed for the services to be provided in 2023, but the last couple of days has made the situation much more complicated, and looting is ongoing. So you can imagine that even the stock already in the country, part of them is looted or seized over.
Okay, next question goes to Abdul Hamid Sayam.
Thank you, Mr. Dieng. My name is Abdul Hamid Sayam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I hope you hear me.
I hear you.
Egypt issued a statement thanking Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates for helping evacuate the Egyptian troops who were trapped in Sudan. Can you shed more light if you have any information that mean there must be some logistics worked out to allow the Egyptian forces to leave Sudan? That means the space of Sudan could be open if there are the right connection. Is there any possibility that some delegation from outside Sudan can get to Sudan and talk to the parties? Thank you.
Yeah. If we're talking about using the existing facility in Sudan, meaning the airport, the different airports, those airports are closed. There is no movement. Now we have heard, as you said, that there was some military evacuation. But using the airport of Khartoum and other airports in the country, so far it's not possible and none has used that. For the time being, they are closed. And we are appealing for those infrastructure to be open so that we can move humanitarian workers between the capital and particularly the states, including the Darfur, to be able to work. But that is not possible yet as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any further questions from the audience? If not, I would like to thank once again our guest, the acting resident and humanitarian coordinator, Abdou Dieng. Thanks very much. I hope you and your colleagues can stay safe, and inshallah, I hope that the next days as we approach Eid are a little bit more peaceful.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure talking to all of you, and we hope that peace will come in this country very soon, because the Sudanese need peace. Over.
Over, and then thanks very much. Have a great day. Over and out to you.
Thank you.